That was the message that maybe I was sending my children. But when the Quran says to hold on hard altogether to the rope of Allah and do not separate, the impression it gives that this is often very difficult to do. But nonetheless, we're supposed to do it. Because we will not always see eye to eye. We will often have strong differences of perspective. And we will become discouraged and angry. But this is human nature. This verse indicates we must rise above our differences. But it says the believing men and believing women are indeed protectors of one another. So I made my way back to the Asha prayer, nightly Asha prayer. It has been 3 years since I returned to the night prayers at the mosque. The situation for women has not appreciably improved, and homegrown participation continues to be negligible. And each time I step into the masjid, I am still weighed down by the omnipresent specter of ever more generations of American Muslim women divorced from Islam's spiritual center. This is why I have felt compelled to speak out on this subject whenever the opportunity presents itself. And that's why I became quite active in speaking the last 5 or 6 years. I took a hiatus from that for several years. Otherwise, by not doing so, I feel that my presence at the prayers is lending tacit support to the institutionalized alienation of women from the masjid. Yet, in America, there is more at stake in this than just female disenfranchisement from Islam's spiritual and religious epicenter. The great majority of American Muslims are homegrown, and the vast majority of these have adopted much of the ethos of the surrounding culture. As a result, most of the second generation converts to Islam, irrespective of gender, whether male or female, view the non-inclusion of women in the mosque as highly problematic. For many native-born Muslim Americans, attending a mosque that marginalizes women is like being a member of an organization that discriminates against persons of color. It's like going to a church that bans black people. Except in this case, the victims of the inequality and inequity are their mothers, aunts, sisters, and daughters. This may not be the only reason why so many homegrown Muslims shun the mosque, but it's certainly a major contributing factor. Since the publication of my second and third books on Islam in America, I have received hundreds of emails and other correspondence from persons of Muslim descent, converts to the faith, and non-Muslims, requesting my opinion on a wide range of religious issues. Most of these communications conveyed considerable doubt about Islam, and a significant portion expressed outright disbelief. Some of the correspondents described themselves as having left the faith or close to doing so. Many thought their queries placed them outside Islam. Since I found I was getting repeatedly asked certain questions, I created a file in which I saved all this correspondence. It is now over 1,300 pages long. While the topics of these conversations intersect with such areas as law, theology, history, hadith science, and scriptural exegesis, the most common focus of discussion, over half of the conversations, a third of which were with men, was on gender problems in the American Muslim community. This is the biggest issue as far as I'm concerned, the biggest challenge we face. Since the perceived ill treatment of women in Muslim society appears to be the most common starting point of homegrown disillusionment with Islam, I have felt compelled to devote so many lectures in my next book to this theme. Unlike my first 2 books and my lectures that I used to give at that time, when I was younger, those lectures, those books were primarily really delivered and written for my children. They are now young adults, and like most native-born Americans of their generation of Muslim descent, they have become habituated to estrangement from the mosque and to the absence in their lives of meaningful religious fellowship. They go it alone. For better or for worse, they have learned to essentially go by themselves, have a faith experience, a solitary faith experience, and to not to rely on nor need a faith community beyond their immediate family. My hope, perhaps a naive one, is that these type of lectures and the next book I'm writing and the other ones I wrote in some way will contribute to changes in some of America's mosques that will make them more hospitable to future homegrown generations, that will make them more family friendly. Of necessity, this has become my present focus, but it would be disingenuous of me to pretend there is a line or even a word that I speak or write, not informed by the unremitting disillusionment, anguish, and frustration I've known as a Muslim father, striving in vain to make his mosque every bit his daughter's. So may God forgive us, brothers and sisters, for what we are doing and what we do to our children in this religion, and for what we fail to do. But I don't want to leave it there on such a downer. You know, I'm inspired by the fact that when I do go, young people like yourselves do come out, hear what I have to say, and discuss the issues, and talk about ways of bringing about changes, or even arguing with me that I'm off base. I don't mind. You know, that inspires me, and slow but sure I have noticed changes in certain Muslim communities in America. I have seen some success stories. Just trying to sort of, in my next book, share those success stories, what I feel are success stories, with the greater Muslim communities, and hope that they will become models that are followed elsewhere in the United States. It's one person's small effort, you know, to try to bring about change in the North American Muslim community. And I'm hoping that it won't just be one person's effort, that more and more will get involved in it. And especially people like yourselves. You are the ones that are going to have to carry the banner of this religion into the future. I am 54 years old, and who knows how much more time I have. But, you know, chances are, from a probabilistic model, you will be on this earth longer than I will. And that you're going to be really saddled with that burden. And it's going to become your responsibility. I hope that you will take it up. If you become leaders, and I hope some of you will become Muslim leaders, I hope you'll become courageous Muslim leaders. I hope you'll become critical thinkers. I hope you'll become self-critical in your thought, rather than just sort of knee-jerk apologists for the religion. I also hope that you'll become real leaders, leaders that will lead. Not, as my father says, most leaders don't really lead. They just see where the crowd is going, and then they run to the front of it, claim it's their idea. You know, really, you know, and I think we have too much of that in the American Muslim community. Most of our leaders, unfortunately, are tied for their living, for their esteem. All of that is so much tied to their positions in the American Muslim community that if they're going to sort of challenge the status quo, all that's going to be in jeopardy. They have a lot to lose personally. That's why I think it's very important that if you are going to become a leader and active in the American Muslim community, you have an independent source of support. You have an independent career, and primarily. So I mean, that means, that, of course, that you're going to have a double effort. You're going to have to live a double life. You're going to have to work hard in your career and become successful at that. And then simultaneously, you're going to have another job, which is, you know, researching, critiquing, studying, and speaking and writing on Islam. But, you know, without that, we cannot move forward. With it, we can do, you know, miracles. We bring about miracles. You know, the Prophet's, peace be upon him, this movement began with just a handful of followers, a handful of very dedicated followers. But that small core of followers led to a massive change. It doesn't take everybody. It just takes your own personal dedication.